Hello, everybody. I'm Jin Ping. So today we're actually going to be talking about a topic that is also related to real estate, but not exactly so-called related to real estate. I think one of the biggest key points or keywords that we always use in our line of work is also this so-called retirement. However, you realize whether retirement is actually a myth in Singapore that we can actually be able to achieve. Today we're going to discover a little bit more about what's the main problem that people face when they're actually doing retirement planning. But before we go into that, please like, share, subscribe to my channel, and any comments that you have, please feel free to just drop your comments, and I will really love to be able to hear from you guys. Okay, so let's start. I think one of the main problems that we always face as a Singaporean is actually how do we be able to retire properly in Singapore. It's very simple to say to want to retire, but you realize actually even a lot of articles also say if we want to retire by 60 etc, are we making the right money in order to get there? In fact, part of the articles that I came across, you also talk about when they want to be retiring. You realize this is actually the age group that people want to retire. However, when you are looking at this, how they are preparing is via some of the savings account, CPF, fixed D, insurance product, of course stocks as well. So granted, all these are all very good products. However, you realize this may not be able to give you certain exponential growth over time, or even to say that, I'm not say property sure make exponential growth, but they don't have the opportunity to, you see. And of course, in another way, they will also look at things, right? Why some of the Singaporeans don't plan, you realize that the priority is also different because they have to maybe prioritize for current financial needs, or maybe they feel that CPF savings are enough. Or in fact, then later they realize, hey, after that my savings is not enough. So you realize there's one key problem is that there's a lot of people who wants to be planning their retirement, but they feel they don't have the means, or rather they don't have the right instrument to be achieving their retirement goal. Some are worse, they don't even know what is my retirement goal. I don't even know how much I need. So today, before I actually go into how we actually get to things right, I want to share a little bit of my personal experience. So actually, I grew up in Toa Payoh, and my parents also bought a HDB flat there. So back then, when they bought the HDB flat, that was around year 2000. Yeah, they actually just bought a HDB because it's comfortable Then lo and behold, actually these recent years around 2024, that period of time, that Chinese New Year, I remember my parents and me having a conversation during reunion dinner Chinese New Year. So my mom was just saying like, hey, I'm looking to be selling my house. So my mom is 65 years old, my dad is about 68. And what her idea was that she wants to be upgrading to a 4-room flat in Toa Payoh. In fact, she told me her lifelong dream is to be able to stay in a 4-room flat. So she said that now that her loan is paid up, okay, she wants to explore upgrading. Actually quite good at 65 years old, a lady can still be dreaming to want to be upgrading. I feel that is very admirable But as a professional, I also have to run her numbers through for her. So I actually looked through, right? Actually, you realize on average in my block, the transacted amount was about $376,000 for our 3-room flat. Okay, and the HDB 4-room that she wants to so-called upgrade to is actually in Toa Payoh Lorong 8, which is actually further away from the central part of Toa Payoh. We are staying quite near to the Toa Payoh MRT So that's where she wants to be upgrading to. Okay, and on average the price is about 474,000. So in order for her to do this upgrade, she first need to top up at about $100,000 first, plus whatever money she sold for the house as top up. Plus also you realize this house is very old already. Okay, it's about almost 50 plus years old So definitely in terms of renovation, in terms of rewiring, all these works have to be done. Then your new furnitures, etc, right, I will factor in another 100,000. So right, in order for her to make this move for a 3 to 4-room upgrade, she needs about $200,000 in cash. So my next question to her is, do you have $200,000 cash to spare? And her answer is, no, I don't have. And that's where I have to mellow down and, guide her and tell her that, in fact, this will be where her final home will be. Because end of the day, she will not be able to get anything out of it if she was to be upgrading, because you realize she's having to pay extra 200,000 for the upgrade. And as a 65 years old, you know that loan is actually not an option. So basically, you're all in into everything else and continue to still be working, etc. And of course, that was quite a sad fact to tell your own parent that, this current house is a final home, but this is the fact of life. And actually, if you look back, that time when she was considering the HDB that we bought, right, she actually considered a condo called Trellis Towers that was actually just down the road. In fact, she went to the show flat and we remember vaguely she told me, she said, wow, very small. In fact, 20 years ago, right, buyers are already thinking that condos are very small already. So I think this concern that you guys have is everlasting. It's a very classic concern. Alright, but diving into the unit types, right, you realize I actually took out the 710 square feet unit types, which is actually the 2 bedrooms, which is actually equivalent to our 3-room flat size. Thereabouts. So same thing, 2 bedroom, 1 living room, kitchen, etc. Similar lah in terms of the layout. But you look at the transacted price on average was 1.461 million. So why is this important for us to know? Okay, imagine my parents 20 years ago, before they committed to the HDB flat, right, there was an angel or Guan Yin Ma come and like go into their dream and say that, hey, you know what, you buy the Trellis Towers, trust me, it's good for you. And today they really own Trellis Towers. They could have sold it for 1.46 million. Okay, and if they want that 4-room flat they always wanted to stay, I minus off this amount plus the renovation, they have about $800,000 left for retirement. Alright, and if you realize, if I divide it out by 3,005, let's say for our living standards, right, that will last them about 253 months, which is actually about 21 years of retirement. So you realize this is what the positive scenario will be. But right now, this is what is happening to my parents. They only have this, they will never be able to sell, they'll continue to be working. Okay, I just want to ask you guys out there, if this is you, is this what you want your retirement life to be? To be still slotting your whole life already, but at the end of the day, right, when you're in your later years, you won't be able to retire properly because of the lack of planning. So this actually is a very personal story that I was struggling whether to share or not. But I realized that a lot of clients out there also lack that kind of urgency. Of course, I understand there are a lot of other financial commitments that we look into. So while we are also trying to manage everything, right, why don't we try to find the right instrument to be able to help us to also reach to our retirement goal? And that is what I'm going to share with you guys today. So first thing, we want to ask, is it easy to retire in Singapore or not? So of course, these kind of things, right, we ask our good friend ChatGPT. Okay, so my prompt is this. So based on today's inflation living standard, how much do I need for retirement in 30 years if I want a future value of $3,500 per month for my retirement? Okay, and assuming that Singapore's long-term inflation is 3% a year, right? This is ChatGPT's answer. The final answer, you need about $8,500 in 30 years time to maintain that $3,500 today. That means to say in 30 years time, right, your $3,500 today will be inflated to $8,500. But it doesn't mean that the value is the same. The $8,500 in the future is the value of $3,500 today. Okay, can understand, right? Okay, then we move on. So if I look at $8,500, I need to save towards that target, right? Okay, in these 20 years, I will need to have about $2.04 million. And this is 2.04. I will actually have to save about $5,000 over a month today for the next 30 years if I am 35 years old now. Okay, until 65 lah. So my question to you is it easy to save almost $5,000 to $6,000 every month until you reach retirement? If your answer is no, then do we have to do something about it? Okay, so I want to ask you, do you want to be in scenario A, where you have been counting your pennies to pay your bills in your retirement years? Or you want to be like B, hold a bag, a lot of money, then drink coffee every day, go jalan, spend money and be a happy retiree? This is a choice that you can make now. Okay, so how can we be able to actually achieve so-called this retirement amount that we're looking at? Of course, before I go into that, I also want to say, of course, in this exercise, I've not taken into consideration for your CPF life, your insurance, your stocks, etc. Because all these things are within your control, how much you want to put into. What I want to do for you here is that while you are able to be doing some form of forced savings, that will also be able to guide you through towards your retirement when you're about 65. So the first thing, we start off with about $435,000 of capital. So if at age 35, I buy a property at $1.5 million. At the age of 40, I sell $1.6 million. So here I make about $100,000. Conservatively, 5 years make $100,000, I think is quite safe to be looking at. Our proceeds then will be $618,951. How do I derive all these numbers? So if I take a loan based on a property price of $1.5 million, I count today's interest rate 2%. At 30 years tenure, my loan is 1.125. And at 60th month, which is 5 years later, my remaining loan balance is 981,000. So I take this and minus this off. This become part of my forced savings. Okay, I need to introduce this part here. So this is what we call an amortization table. So you will see from here, right, there are a few things that we look at. The monthly repayment, which is the monthly installment that you will pay for your property. And that monthly installment that you pay will be split into so-called two parts. One part which is the interest, which is the cost of borrowing. The other part is the principal. That means to say you realize that when you actually be going on, right, part of your payment will be for cost. The other part will become part of your forced savings. That's why we take the loan balance. It's easy for you to look at it. Then the next one, of course, when we are at 40 already, now based on the $618,000 that we have, this becomes, typo error, this is where the capital is, and we will be able to buy something at 2.1 million. This time around we stay for 10 years because I assume at about 40 you probably will be married and you have some kids. You want to also have a more stable lifestyle, right? So we'll stay in this property for 10 years. And this is 10 years, let's maybe aim to make about $200,000. Fair? I think it's quite fair okay? So based on that, when I'm at 50 years old, I will sell, and this is my sales proceed. Same thing, based on amortization table, you realize first thing of all, our loan tenure drop. Because now that you're already at 40 years old, so you plus 25 is 65 years old loan. Then next, of course, the last part of things, when you are at 50, we want to go into a longer holding period. So based on the same the new capital of 1.262 million, we can buy a property at about $2.5 million. This time around, we will hold it for 15 years and we will want to make 500,000 out of it. So you realize, right, actually from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, you realize in terms of the appreciation of the property, I'm quite conservative. You might be thinking, wow, 5 years make 100,000, I don't want. I agree with you, I definitely agree. 5 years make 100,000 may not seem to be the most attractive deal, but in today's exercise, I want to be as conservative as possible. Because if I become too speculative, right, we will not be able to predict the market. So you realize I'm very safe and conservative in terms of the numbers in order to make this exercise work. So when during the market change or if the market really becomes much better, you realize that your wealth accumulation is much faster compared to what the conservation of our calculation is. Okay, so by 50 to 65 for 15 years, I want to make $500,000. My proceeds then is 2.043 million. So you can see actually by just changing your house, you will be able to accumulate up to about $2 million in terms of our future retirement, which is what we have saw previously based on if we want $3,500 a month. Like I said, what I have done today is something that is very conservative. I don't want to be too speculative because if I'm too speculative, it may not be the best or the fairest to you. Importantly, that I want to be most conservative as possible, the lowest risk possible. So of course, same thing. But this time round for the 50 to 65, right, you realize the loan we take a lower loan. Because why? I want to maintain the monthly repayment to be lower. If I take a 75% loan, this one it will about 12,000 plus a month for retirement. For your repayment or mortgage can be quite taxing also. So I just want to keep it low as well. Then why is it that I'm actually using property as one of our stronghold for future retirement? You realize that the price gap in 2024 over the last 20 years, right? HDB has jumped about 183%. Private condos has jumped about 230%. Our landed property has jumped about 423%. So you realize actually when I'm encouraging you guys to do upgrading into buying a property, right, it's not so much about that lifestyle. Yes, okay, having a swimming pool is nice, having a security guard post that is nice, a functional etc. facilities is all great. But you realize that what we are trying to do, right, is to capitalize on all these things. The appreciation of the private property to be able to help us to reach our goal faster. If today you're telling me after you have calculated, right, hey, my goal is more than 2 million, I want to have, for example, $7,000 a month for future amount, then you need to save out, you need to have $4 million when you are at age 65. Here, you need to have 4 million at age 65. So my question to you is, is it something that we can achieve if we continue to stay put in HDB now? My parents are a perfect example. When they bought their flat in about year 2000, it was about 150,000. Now they are selling about 340k lah. Good ma, actually we make double like one time off very good But you realize this amount here is not enough for current retirement. The appreciation of the HDB flat is not fast enough to catch up with the living standards of Singapore. And when that happens, you realize the longer you hold it, you will start to lag more and more behind. And this is what happened to our parents. If we had bought Trellis Towers, for example, given that kind of growth that we have seen here, actually would they be in the better position? So I just want to let you guys know one last thing. To sell or not, right, it really depends on how much you want for your retirement. Alright, so this is the end of today's video. If you have any questions or any comments for me, please slide me in a DM. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.